Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritta Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Nastaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So today we're reading from 4th canto, chapter 9, and we'll read verses 53 and 54. Text 53, and the title of the chapter is Dhruva Maharaja Returns Home. Lalyamanam janair evam dhruvam sabhrataram nrpah aropya karinim hrstah stuyamano visat puram. Translation. The sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, when everyone was thus praising Dhruva Maharaj, the king was very happy, and he and Dhruva and his brother, seated on the back of a she-elephant, thus returned to his capital, where he was praised by all classes of men. Text 54. I'll just read the English and purport. This is the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The whole city was decorated with columns of banana trees containing bunches of fruits and flowers, and betel nuts. Betel nut trees with leaves and branches were seen here and there. There were also many gates set up which were structured to give the appearance of sharks. Purport. Auspicious ceremonies with decorations of the green leaves of palms, coconut trees, betel nuts, and banana trees, and fruits, flowers, and leaves are an age-old custom in India. To receive his great son Dhruva Maharaj, King Uttanapada arranged for a good reception, and all the citizens very enthusiastically took part with great jubilation. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshudum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paridana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Rindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kupasindu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So please again accept my humble obeisances and seek the blessings of all assembled Vaishnavas so that we may have a very fruitful discussion to hear on Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam, the most ripened fruit of all Vedic knowledge. I'm grateful for this opportunity. So we continue our study of Dhruva Maharaj and the great story of the power of devotional service. And we know this is one of the favorite pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as he studied this pastime over and over and over again with his dear associate Gadadhar Pandit. And so we can understand by that there must be many, many lessons we can draw out from this wonderful pastime. So we're in this section now where King Uttanapada and his entourage, his close family members, his ministers, and other important people have gone out to receive Dhruva Maharaj. And it's a stunning contrast to how he left. Just 6 months or so prior, Dhruva Maharaj left in a mood of anger. He was shunned from sitting on the lap of his father. He left with no grand pomp and circumstance, no one to accompany him. He was simply running away from home. And now he's being welcomed home in the most grandest of ways. As we read in the 54th verse, beautiful decorations adorned the streets, and everyone was enthusiastic in receiving Dhruva Maharaj. So we can see that there's a complete change, a royal procession. And so what has changed? Here we see then the extraordinary potency of bhakti, the extraordinary power of devotional service. Dhruva Maharaj returns as a great, great devotee, having completed intense meditation and devotional service. And we can see how Krishna has reciprocated. In material terms, we can say, went from zero to hero overnight. Of course, Dhruva Maharaj is a great personality prior to leaving, but he returns an extraordinary person. And so we see the great power of devotional service, and also the mercy of Krishna, how grand the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. So this is a little bit of a short purport, so I'll take some liberty with your permission to explore some tangential points that are coming up in these two verses, as well as some prior verses, to bring together hopefully some points that can inspire all of us to continue progressing in the process of devotional service, and to remain enthusiastic and determined, as we see in the example of the great Dhruva Maharaj. So 4 things I wanted to discuss today. First, diagnosing this love versus envy. How we can see love versus envy here in these verses, but also importantly within our own experiences in life, and in particular in bhakti. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about Krishna's love for Dhruva Maharaj, how Krishna is providing and protecting, and how Krishna reciprocated so extraordinarily. We see, again, he's coming home, a great hero, just one of the many aspects of Krishna's reciprocation with Dhruva Maharaj. We'll discuss a little bit about that. Third point we'll discuss is a little bit about how devotees become very attractive to all. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we see the second characteristic awarded to one who is practicing sadhana bhakti is Shubhada, becoming all auspicious. So we'll discuss that in some detail. And then finally, time permitting, we'll discuss a little bit about this etiquette for receiving devotees. How King Uttanapada arranged so nicely in some other examples, and how we can learn from those. So before we get into those 4 points, I just, one side thought that was, as I was reading these verses, we see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about the Rajarshis, evam parampara praptam imam rajarsyo viduhu sakala neha mahata yoga nashta padantapa. That how these kings who were acting like rishis, they were guided by Vedic principles in their ruling. They received this great knowledge in disciplic succession. And the result of such leadership is great benefits for society. And we'll see here in the coming verses, King Uttanapada, as soon as Dhruva Maharaj is capable of running the kingdom, he renounces everything and enters into the forest for a life of ascetic experiences. And we'll see the palaces and the accompaniments of this kingdom is so grand, so royal. Yet there's no attachment. The real attachment is to awakening our love of God and executing devotional service. And so we saw this in the great kings of past. And I was struck by this because I'm heading to Baltimore and DC area today for about 5 or 6 days, and I was just wondering what it would be like if today in our nation's capital area we had Rajarshis actually leading the country. How much wonderful society would be, how people would be in such a great state of mind, depression, crimes, suicides, drug abuse, all these things would dissipate by the great rule of these kings. And so this Srimad Bhagavatam certainly gives us the path to how to lead and how to rule. Someday we can pray it can return. So now getting into the first topic, we see here in the 53rd verse that the king was very happy hearing everyone praise Dhruva Maharaj. And we can understand this to be love. And there's a nice way for us to diagnose love versus envy. When someone we love is praised, we become happy. And when someone we envy is praised, we become unhappy. We become upset. It's a very simple yet exacting formula. When someone we love is praised, we become very enthusiastic. But when that recipient of praise is someone we envy, our heart aches in pain. And it's a very clear test. And you can see, due to the fatherly love, King Uttanapada was very, very happy to see and hear the glories of his son. Devotees love to hear the glories of Krishna. They don't enjoy hearing their own glories because of their love for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada would often become very proud and happy when someone would glorify his disciples, commenting on their great qualities, their great abilities. He might criticize or chastise them in front of them to keep them humble and detached from some glory. But he felt great happiness because of his extraordinary love. And it reminded me of a pastime with Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. I'll take some liberty since yesterday we celebrated his disappearance day of, a very great moment in the life with Bhaktivedanta Thakur and Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. As we know, Bhaktivedanta Thakur was preaching very strongly to establish the supremacy of Vaishnavism, that the Vaishnava is even higher than the Brahmana. And he was trying to awaken these lost teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there was quite a conflict and a debate, if you will, about really what was truly correct according to Shastra. Does everyone have access to this devotional service, or is it the monopoly of the Brahmanas? And so Bhaktivedanta Thakur was invited to a great debate that was going to settle for once and for all this question. And just few weeks before this debate was to be had, he became very, very sick, and it became evident he was not going to be able to go and attend this debate and to represent the viewpoint of the Vaishnavas. And he became, quite concerned about who would be qualified, who would be capable of, presenting this authoritative position, because this was going to resolve it once or for all. And we know Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur authored a paper at that time, drawing up from Shastra all kinds of evidences about the supremacy of Vaishnavism. And when Bhaktivedanta Thakur read this, he became extraordinarily proud and happy and pleased that his son was now qualified and capable of representing the Vaishnavas. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is still relatively young at this age, at this time. And but he had great confidence in sending him into this debate. And we know Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur destroyed the Brahmanas in their debate. And there was such a raucous at the end of this debate. People were so excited to have darshan of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, understanding him to be some great personality. There was a mob rushing the stage, trying to touch his feet. And the police had to find a way to cool down the crowd, and so they took Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's feet and they dumped him into a bucket of water, and they were sprinkling this water all over the crowd just to pacify them. And so just imagining how happy and pleased Bhaktivedanta Thakur must have been, his prayers that he prayed to Lord Jagannath to send him a son who could carry on this revival of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, and to see his son perform so well must have been extraordinarily pleasing to him, and just reminded me of that in reading this, how King was very, very happy to see the glories of Dhruva Maharaja being praised. So now we see the potency here of bhakti in so many ways. We see particularly the purifying effects of devotional service. We have so many anarthas within our heart. We have this pride and envy and greed and illusion, and all these anarthas, they come out in different ways. But by the process of devotional service, we see that we purify from them. And there's so many examples here just in the last several verses and in this current verse, where we can see this firsthand. Dhruva Maharaj is sitting on the back of a she-elephant with his brother, who he was trying to join his brother to sit on the lap of his father when he was rejected. And he had some animosity, but now you can see that by the power of devotional service, he's very happily enjoying the presence of his brother. Queen Suniti, she had no hesitation to take Queen Surichi and Uttama on her own palanquin. This is the Vaishnava quality. They do not become revengeful. They do not become, to the point where they hold grudges. No, she had very great Vaishnava qualities, and she had no problems. You see, Dhruva Maharaj, when Queen Surichi was there, he offers obeisances. And I was struck by the one sentence by Srila Prabhupada in the purport where he says, I quote, "Feelings of insult or honor in this material world are never perceived by a devotee." And you can see Dhruva Maharaj, by the power of devotional service, he left in such a rage of anger. Yet in a very short time, he was able to acquire this great quality by the power of devotional service. We know in the pastime of Haridas Thakur, Haridas Thakur was being beaten in 22 marketplaces. And we may wonder, Krishna says he is the protector of all. Surdam Sarva Bhutanam. He is our well-wisher. Why he did not stop this after the first marketplace? He had the ability to. Why he didn't stop it? Haridas Thakur was being taken to 22 marketplaces, being physically beaten, being humiliated, his reputation being tarnished. So why Krishna didn't help? Because, as we know in reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, this extraordinary devotional quality that Haridas Thakur had. He was begging Krishna to forgive those who were beating him. He was pleading that they are just following the orders of their master. Don't do anything. Krishna had sent the Sudarshana Chakra, but Haridas Thakur was praying for the deliverance of those people who were physically beating him. And thus the Sudarshan Chakra knew, better I listen to Krishna's devotee than to even Krishna himself, because he knows what really pleases the Supreme Lord. So we see that this great quality of even insult or honor in this material world, they're never perceived by these great devotees. And this is the potency of devotional service. And Dhruva Maharaja is exhibiting this in this section of this 9th chapter. And in just a couple prior verses, Queen Surichi even offered respects, and in the verse we hear about how the water is forced to a lower point. One is driven to glorify and offer respects to the devotees. And this is the power of our association. And we can see, are we on the right track? In the association of great devotees, do we develop these qualities of love and lessen these qualities of envy? Again, the envy is the root cause of our existence in this material world. We came here out of envy of Krishna. And thus, we are in the process of trying to purify the heart of this envy. And you can see by the practice of devotional service, one can become very quickly purified if we practice according to the instructions, as Dhruva Maharaj did. Again, I'll just repeat that test that is very helpful for us in being truthful and introspective about the degree of envy we have. That when someone we love is praised, are we happy? Then it is love. But when we hear someone who is praised and our heart becomes saddened, that is envy. And that is why Krishna says, don't preach this message to anyone who is envious. We may wonder why. Why can't we help them? They have envy of Krishna. Why can't we help them? Krishna is so loving to all of his lost children, even those who don't love him. He knows that if an envious person hears of the glories of Krishna, they'll become upset, sad, and he doesn't want that. They also may become offensive and thus incur more suffering due to the sinful reactions of those offenses. And so Krishna says, don't share this knowledge with the envious, because it will not make them happy. This is the magnanimity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the devotees become enthusiastic to try to help those who have envy begin to take to the process of devotional service. Because it is only through the process of devotional service that we can purify the envy in our heart. This nrpah can only be removed by this process of devotional service. So the next point I'd like to talk a little bit about is the extraordinary love Krishna has for Dhruva Maharaj and how powerful the reciprocation is in bhakti. When we see this reciprocation with Krishna, it inspires us to carry on through some of the difficult times in devotional service. Because if there is no reciprocation, if there's no feedback mechanism, no rasa in exchange, then the impetus to do bhakti will not manifest. So by seeing and analyzing and observing some of the great reciprocation Krishna bestowed upon Dhruva Maharaj, hopefully it can inspire us also in our practice of devotional service. As I said, he left broken-hearted, and now he's returning a hero. We often are broken-hearted, and we want to become healed from that emotion. We want to become, again, very joyous. And you can see just very tangibly, Dhruva Maharaj left upset, and now he's returning a hero. In the last several verses, Dhruva Maharaja was expressing his lamentation. He was lamenting that he had asked for a few grains of broken rice when he could have asked for something extraordinary, like the love of God, when he had darshan of the Supreme Lord. And so he was lamenting. And this lamenting is an extraordinary fortune of Dhruva Maharaj. Why? Because by the power of bhakti and the blessings of Krishna, he was now able to see the faults in his way, the mistakes he had made. Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam piti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. He says, to one who is satatam, always engaged in my devotional service, I give them the intelligence. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. In the very next verse, Krishna says that he dispels the darkness of ignorance, the light of knowledge. So Krishna gave full understanding to Dhruva Maharaj because of his devotion. And that is one of the great things, the great blessings we can have, that when we can become aware of some of our mistakes. We are often showed our mistakes, sometimes by others around us, sometimes by Krishna directly. And the question is, does our ego allow us to take that highlight of that mistake and bring about some change in our consciousness? Or do we fight it? Do we argue it back? Do we reject it? To the extent we reject it, we are forgoing the great blessing of being able to benefit from this intelligence that Krishna is giving. It is explained in Shastra that when Krishna really loves us, he illuminates all of our nrpahs, all of the impurities that we must overcome so that we can begin to work on them. And so we see Dhruva Maharaj had the great fortune of being able to lament for his seeing this duality of having this material desire and his bhakti, all of these things, and it is due only to the mercy of Krishna. Only if Krishna empowers us to see this with this intelligence do we have a scope. And that reciprocation comes when we practice devotional service. We also see the great protection that Krishna gives. He explains in the 22nd verse of the 9th chapter this that he preserves what we have and he carries what we lack. But sometimes we doubt that personal attention that Krishna gives. Does Krishna really come and help me? We see in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, Krishna came at the end of his meditation and he saw him, touched the conch to his head, and was blessed with such wonderful intelligence and knowledge from that interaction. But we wonder ourselves, does Krishna really come? How do we know? Once there was a king who had a similar doubt, and his servant was explaining to him that, yes, Krishna personally comes. And the king had doubts. No, how many people can Krishna personally attend to? He has so many things to deal with. He's manufacturing so many universes, managing the ups and downs and all the different forces and energies, and then the living entities. Sure, he has a long line out of the door of his office for people waiting to see him. How he can, personally attend. And surely he's got people he can send to deal with these different matters. When his devotee needs something, he can send somebody. Why he has to personally come? So like this, the king was expressing to his servant. And so the servant said, okay. And he decided he was going to teach him a lesson and show him why Krishna comes. And so one day they were in the yard, in the lawn of the palace. And beyond the lawn there was a nice pond. And in the pond there was a boat. And the king saw that his son was seated on the boat. And one of the servants was rowing him around the pond and enjoying. And the king was watching this experience. And then all of a sudden he saw, in great anxiety, that his son had fell out of the boat and was beginning to drown. And the king, without hesitation, ran towards the pond, jumped into the water, fully clothed, and began to swim to that boat to retrieve his son. And when he reached the boat, he saw it was a doll. And the king became, what happened? This is ridiculous. Who played this joke on me? And he swam back to the shore. And he became very angry at the servant. And he said, why you did this? And the servant explained, King, why did you go to save your son? You have so many ministers, so many security guards. You had your own servant in the boat. But why did you go to save your son? And then the king understood. Yes, this is why Krishna comes. Because it is out of love. The king has so much love for his son. He was not going to rely on anyone else to come and protect. He wanted to personally go. And thus, he understood that Krishna comes and protects his devotees out of his love. It is not a burden, though the devotees should be mindful and have the consciousness not to create the need unnecessarily for Krishna to come. But understand that Krishna will come because that is a natural tendency in a loving relationship. That's what we do. And Srila Prabhupada often quoted this story of Arjunacharya, who also had doubt in this personal protection of Krishna. When he read that verse in Bhagavad Gita, he crossed out, I will personally come. He could not understand that Krishna would come. And then, he after crossing out, he went out to collect some things. And he was gone for some time, and then his wife was at home, and two boys had knocked on the door and banged on the door. And she opened the door, and they were carrying all kinds of foodstuffs and grains and wonderful things. And she said, why are you bringing this? Where are you coming from? She says, oh, your husband has sent us to deliver these things to you. And she saw all kinds of high quality foodstuffs, fruits, vegetables, grains. Wow, so nice. He's gone out to bring some things back. So many things he has brought, sent with these two boys. So she invited the two boys in. She said, come, he'll return shortly. You see him? And said, no, we'll not go. She was stunned. Why? Why you won't come in? You don't want to? No, he'll beat us. My husband has never beaten anybody. He's such a calm, sweet, saintly person. And then they showed their backs. And on their backs there were lines, lash marks. See, this is what happened last time we met him. And they ran away. And his wife became very, very upset. Furious. How he could do this to these two boys as he lost all sense. And she became very upset. When Arjunacharya returns home, he sees that his wife had all these foodstuffs, had prepared food, and had been eating, which she had never done before. She'd always wait to serve him first, then she would honor remnants. So what has happened today? And she was very angry. How you could beat those boys? He said, what boys? These two beautiful boys came to my house, one darkish, one whitish. How you could beat them? Arjunacharya was perplexed. And then he thought, let me go. And he goes back into his room and he sees the lines in his Bhagavad Gita. And he understood that Krishna and Balaram had come himself to show that he is personally coming and giving. When he had doubt, he represented this way. So this personal attention comes for one who practices pure devotional service. That is the relationship of love. And Krishna gave that protection and provisions to Dhruva Maharaja. So many wonderful qualities now Dhruva Maharaja had acquired by his practice of devotional service. And so, even though he was lamenting his wanting of material desires, still he is receiving a great situation of this great reception, though it is not their desire. So now let's talk a little bit about these qualities that make one all attractive. Pure devotees, they don't want respect. Amanina manadena. They don't want respect. But that respect is spontaneously given. Again, just as we saw in the prior verse, just as water naturally flows to a low point. And why this respect comes, why this excitement comes. Because when we are connected with Krishna, then we have real wealth, real glory, real attraction. Because Krishna is the source of all things that are attractive. He is all attractive. He is the source of all these qualities. And when the devotee becomes connected to Krishna, they manifest also in that pure devotee. And there is this natural tendency, human nature, to worship and respect. We see it in all walks of life. And so this tendency is exhibited when they come in contact with these great devotees. So when all these personalities receiving Dhruva Maharaj, now being purified by the process of devotional service, they became spontaneously attracted to him, naturally attracted to him. And in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami explains that in the practice of sadhana bhakti, as one practices sadhana bhakti, two characteristics are awarded: kleshagni and shubhadda. The shubhadda means all auspiciousness. And so it's explained that as the material distresses dissipate, this all auspiciousness becomes manifest in the devotee. It is not fully manifest until one is free of all other nrpahs. But as one continues to practice sadhana bhakti, that this all auspiciousness manifests. And it's explained that this all auspiciousness has kind of four contexts or four aspects to being all auspicious. The first is that the devotee, they benefit everyone. They're a blessing to the world. You know, a devotee is the greatest welfare constituent, welfare giver, because they can help everyone universally. We see so many charitable organizations, and it is very limited in what they can do. If you are hungry, then a food organization can help you. But if you are sick, they cannot help you. But if you are sick and you are a shelter organization, they cannot help you, but they can help someone in shelter. You know, we have these United Nations, and they're always trying to create peace, but there's always a negotiation. Somebody wins and somebody loses. There's no universal welfare activity. Even, you know, these like the World Health Organization, all these organizations, they're so limited. But the devotee can benefit everyone. There is not a single living entity, even the non-human species, that cannot benefit by the blessings of a devotee, because of the eternal relationship every living entity has with the Supreme Lord. And so they benefit everyone. That is the first aspect of all auspiciousness. The second aspect we see very vividly here is that they attract everyone. Why? Because when one develops these great qualities, which will be the third aspect of all auspiciousness, naturally people become attracted to them. When someone has no self-motive, they have no envy, they're very generous, they're very kind, they have no enemies, that becomes a very attractive qualities, you know. And it attracts even those who are not seeking spiritual pursuits. We see this very vividly in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is making his way to Vrindavan. And he enters the Jharikand forest. And there it's explained how various animals, very ferocious animals even, are parting ways and giving path to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Seeing and understanding his great person has come. The Supreme Lord, of course. But then it goes even further, that these animals not only give way, but then they start to follow in procession. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu begins to engage them in dancing. And you see tigers and deer dancing together. How else that can happen? Tigers do only one thing with deer. They eat them. Yet, in the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibiting these great devotional qualities, we see that even the tigers and deer can become loving friends. So this is the benediction. Srila Prabhupada, it's amazing. If you see people, they describe Srila Prabhupada, and not necessarily his disciples and his followers, but those who even had very external relationships with him, they would characterize him as a very beautiful man. Now, how many 70-plus-year-old men are considered beautiful? But Srila Prabhupada, the beauty from within was inspiring people. He would sit in a park and he would be chanting and banging on a drum. Well, in New York City, that's not such a new phenomenon. But when Srila Prabhupada was in the park and sitting under the tree, crowds and crowds and crowds were coming because everyone was attracted by these devotional qualities. You can see that people would be walking down the street and it's as if there was a magnet pulling them to see Srila Prabhupada. So this attractiveness is manifest. And we see this with Dhruva Maharaja, and we see this in recent history with Srila Prabhupada and other great personalities. Then finally, the fourth aspect of all auspiciousness is this concept of producing good qualities. That by the practice of bhakti, one acquires good qualities. Now, I should say acquires, but the good qualities that are natural to us, that are our innate greatness, they come out. This living entity, the spirit soul, naturally has all these great qualities. And the process of bhakti is to just bring them out. And we see in society too, people with good character, they're respected. Bill Gates, when he was running Microsoft, he was the source of so much animosity. People hated him. They thought that he was so greedy and he was creating a monopoly of Windows, and he was at least respected for his intelligence, but he was not a well-liked person. But after retiring from Microsoft and starting this great foundation and trying to do all these wonderful things, he's become all of a sudden this very liked person. So these, the good character become very, very respected. And we know that Ramananda Rai, in this discussion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, explains that the most famous, most liked person is the great devotee. But these qualities develop, and I just wanted to read, with your permission, in chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains 35 transcendental qualities that are present in his pure devotees. These are characteristics that are present in the pure devotees. So I'll just read. This is verses starting from the 13th verse. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination. His mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, nor laments nor desires, who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. And you see these very wonderful qualities that one obtains, and they are obtained by the practice of pure devotional service. Artificially trying to become tolerant, trying to become friendly to enemies, it cannot last. It will not, for the long term, maintain. The only way to acquire these wonderful qualities is through the practice of devotional service. Because the lust in the heart, unless it is removed, will lead to this anger and greed and these things all manifest. But by the practice of devotional service, one begins to see things as they are. And you can see Dhruva Maharaja, had these very wonderful qualities. Very enjoyingly sitting next to, his brother on the she-elephant. Offering respects to Queen Surichi, though she forbade him from sitting on the lap. We see these great characteristics in the practice of devotees. And sometimes when we read these types of qualities, we think, wow, I'll never be me. I'll never be able to have this type of equipoise, both in happiness and distress. I'll never be able to see my friends and enemies with an equal eye. They seem like very difficult. Well, they are difficult. They're extraordinarily difficult to achieve. But by the power of bhakti, they can be had very quickly. This is the potency of bhakti. Bhakti is so powerful that the difficult and impossible become easy and possible. Because it is a reciprocation of Krishna who can manifest these qualities within us, who can bring them out. If we rely on our own abilities, we're hopeless. It'll never happen. But if we rely on the extraordinary love and potency of Krishna and rendering service to him, it'll happen. Thus he says, very dear to me. He says, they are mine. Krishna takes a possessive spirit towards his devotees. That is the beauty of this loving relationship. So, by the practice of pure devotional service, this all auspiciousness is bestowed upon the devotee. Again, the four aspects of all auspiciousness. 1, they benefit everyone. 2, become very attractive. They attract everyone. And 3, they produce these very, very good qualities. And the 4th we didn't discuss is one becomes very happy, joyful. You can see Dhruva Maharaja, his lamentation at least has been dissipated. So finally, I'll just conclude with a quick discussion on this etiquette. You can see the great effort that King Uttanapada and all the residents of the kingdom put forth to receive Dhruva Maharaja. They decorated the city very, very nicely. And we see this, in hearing about the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. Every time he would visit a temple, the devotees would spend so much time and energy and effort making sure everything was perfect. Painting the place, cleaning the place, fixing up anything that needed to be done. And they're very enthusiastic to make the place as perfect as possible to receive Srila Prabhupada. This is the etiquette. Badrinath Maharaj was giving a class in Vrindavan recently. I heard it was quite funny. He was saying that Srila Prabhupada had come to Detroit, and his schedule changed, and so he came a couple days earlier than planned. And so the devotees were in a great blissful anxiety of getting everything ready. And so they were working around the clock. Virtually nobody slept for 2 or 3 days. And then, Srila Prabhupada arrived in the morning, and he sat down on the Vyasas and gave his welcome address. And Badrinath Maharaj at that time had some cooking service. And so he was cooking for the deities. And he decided to come into the room where Prabhupada was giving class, and just to see what was going on. And he walked in, and he saw everybody was asleep, completely out cold. And Srila Prabhupada still had so much love for this. He understood that they had worked so hard to prepare the place for him to receive, that Prabhupada took a very humble and loving mood and carried on with this class, where virtually everybody was fast asleep. So we see this great endeavor to make a very wonderful place when a pure devotee of the Lord comes. And so as Dhruva Maharaj is returning home, all the residents were very joyous and enthusiastic in making it a very, very nice place. So with that, I'll conclude the presentation. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments, questions, clarifications, corrections? Please forgive me for any mistakes I may have made, but any discussion we can have?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Very, very, very wonderful class. Very nicely. Yes. Me cry. That's very, very nice. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank
I
you
don't
very
have
much.
any question. Very, very wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your blessings, Mataji. Dandavat pranams.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you for your blessings.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, such a beautiful class. Thank you so much Prabhuji. Very nice class and very nice discussion Prabhuji. It is so nice. Anybody has any questions or comments for Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat pranam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much Prabhuji for a very, very inspiring class. Prabhuji, I have a question. You were telling the sadhana bhakti to in pure sadhana bhakti, we manifest that to quality. Means, is it to practice pure sadhana bhakti, is it we should free from the anarthas?
Okay. So, thank you very much, Mataji, for your question. So, by the practice of our sadhana bhakti, we'll become free from our anarthas. So, the heart will become purified. And these qualities of all auspiciousness and full kleshagni actually do not manifest until we are fully free of our anarthas and have reached the nishtha, the fixed stage of bhakti. So the process for us is that we work on the practice of chanting. By the practice of our sadhana, these things will automatically happen, and they'll happen in time because these are awarded to the practitioner of pure devotional service. But they are fully awarded once one has perfected and concluded the full sadhana bhakti stage. So you may see these qualities develop.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, 1 second, please mute your phone. Prabhu's sound is coming echo. All the devotees, please mute your phone. Thank you, Prabhu. Please go ahead. Sorry, Prabhu.
No, thank you, Mataji, for correcting that. So the qualities will come and they'll be fully manifest when we have perfected our sadhana bhakti. So in the beginning processes of our sadhana bhakti, we may see some of these qualities coming, and then they may go also. They may dissipate. And our consciousness can be that as they manifest, we become aware of them, and we try to, develop them. But we don't develop them by the process of, okay, let me try to become tolerant, or we develop them by the practice of bhakti. That's the important part. It's also the encouraging part, because sometimes it can be unsettling to think, wow, I can never develop all these qualities. Just chant. By good chanting, these qualities will manifest. So, did I answer your question, Mataji? I'm not sure I did, so if you have a follow-up, I can continue.
No, Prabhu, that is fine. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Any other comments or questions?
Daniel Saran, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, thank you so much for a wonderful class. Usually your classes are wonderful. Prabhuji, one question which I had during your lecture, you had mentioned that during our process of devotional service, there is the opportunity, or rather, Krishna eliminates those anarthas that we have, so that we can work on it. Something like that you had mentioned. Mm-hmm. Could you just elaborate on that?
Yeah.
In what it is?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just like, if you go to the doctor illuminates to us what the problem is and why he's illuminating that problem, not to make us depressed, but to get us on the path of recovery, to help us recover from whatever that problem is. That is the role of the doctor. So similarly, when Krishna sees the devotee sincerely aspiring to make progress in devotional service, Krishna will illuminate these shortcomings or these anarthas that we have, so that we can work on them, that we can start to try to overcome them. If we don't see them, then we can't make any effort to overcome them, right? And Dhruva Maharaja, in this example, right, he's lamenting. Well, imagine a scenario where Dhruva Maharaja had darshan of the Lord. He was given this benediction to rule the Dhruva Lok and rule for 36,000 years. He could have been running, jumping up and down, and skipping all the way back to the palace, thinking, look what I got. Right? That would have been a reasonable reaction. But Krishna blessed him with the feeling of lamentation. And that lamentation is the greatest blessing, because he realized, oh, Krishna, I could have done so much more. Look at the flaws, what mistakes I made in my bhakti. Right? So when one practices devotional service, and that's why Krishna says in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that if you approach him with desires, this artha, arti, jnani, and jignasu, if you have these desires, still it's better you approach Krishna, because he'll help us purify them. How he purifies us of them? By showing them to us. And then we can, work to overcome them. Now, the problem we have is sometimes Krishna sends, someone else to show them to us. We're serving in the temple and someone says, oh, Prabhu, you did this incorrectly. And then what happens? The ego comes in. How you can criticize me? Don't you know what I did? And we start giving them our whole resume of who we are. And then we start telling them, then yesterday you did this, and 2 days ago you did that. And we smash that opportunity to gain from the light that's being shown on something that we did incorrectly. It's our greatest fortune. But if our ego gets in the way of it, then we lose that blessing. We lose that. So, we should be very thoughtful. Remember, Krishna is the supreme controller. Nothing happens. Not even a blade of grass moves in the wind without his sanction. So if someone comes and gives us some critique of our service, no, Krishna has sanctioned that. There must be some reason he has sanctioned that. So let's reach out and explore. What is it? What did I do incorrectly? Or maybe Krishna is teaching me tolerance. Or maybe Krishna is teaching me this. Whatever it is. Don't react at the person. That person is obviously, this action is being sanctioned by the Lord. So this is the vision a devotee has. And then they can actually take advantage of this illumination of our anarthas. So we have to be mindful not to let our ego squash them, because then we lose the opportunity. So, it's okay, Method?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. Basically making us aware of our own shortcomings so that we can work on it probably.
Yeah, and don't become depressed by them. Oh, I have this. Don't become despondent about it. No, become enthusiastic. Wait a minute. By the power of bhakti, these will go away. No problem. It won't go away by my power, but it'll go away by the power of bhakti. Let me just double down my efforts. A little bit more effort. Krishna can make it happen. I can't make it happen, but Krishna can make it happen. So don't take the other side of that either. When we see our anarthas, no need to become depressed and lethargic. No, become enthusiastic. But enthusiastic in the mercy of Krishna and Guru. That's how we can make progress in devotional service. Right? So don't let these things, sometimes we mistake humility with low self-esteem. No. We can be extraordinarily proud of one thing. I am an infinitesimal tiny spark of someone who is extraordinary. And that is Krishna. I am not extraordinary, but I am related to somebody who's extraordinary, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's actually humility. So it's not low self-esteem. So when these things come up, don't become, have high esteem. Yes, by the power of bhakti, these will quickly dissipate. Kleshagni Shubhada. It's given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We see it in Dhruva Maharaja. We see it around us in other devotees that we may associate with. So it'll happen to me also if I take advantage of the opportunity presented to me. If I fight back against the shining of those anarthas, well, then it's our loss.
Thank you for this.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, Vardhana Mataji, you want to go? Please go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam Argas to Prabhupada. Thank you so much for wonderful class, Prabhu. I have a question like all devotees says, you have to be enthusiastic and you have to fake it. Once you fake it, sometimes you will get into those qualities. But to get that enthusiasm, it is so difficult to sometimes, Prabhuji, because of laziness or some other things. We don't fall into that. How to get it, that enthusiasm, Prabhuji?
Yeah. The saying is, fake it until you make it. So, sometimes we have to, just do it. And then there's a proper application of that principle and an improper application of that principle, of course. But the point is, to be enthusiastic. Well, like anything, we're enthusiastic when we understand the value of what that enthusiastic endeavor will yield. I'll just give a very mundane example related to chanting. If I put a box in front of all of us and say, okay, you have to fast for 3 days and you have to not sleep for 3 days. And then you come and you have to chant your 16 rounds. You cannot yawn once, and you cannot, miss a syllable, miss a word, nothing. But inside this box, there's $1 million, and it's yours if you make that. Now, we'll be very enthusiastic to chant because I have a tangible understanding of the value of that $1 million. Because I know what it can do for me, my enthusiasm to complete the mission will be there. Now, why I don't have enthusiasm to chant the holy names of the Lord when Krishna is saying that, to my unflinching devotee, I give them my eternal abode. Because we don't have yet a full grasp of the value, the wonderful blessings of pure devotional service, of Krishna Prema, of serving him in Golok Vrindavan. If we're cognizant and aware of the outcome, then we'll be enthusiastic in the activity. Just like in school. We were enthusiastic in school to the extent we had great faith and belief in the value of that degree. We overcome so many difficulties, so many distractions, so many thoughts of laziness. I don't want to study. No, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. Why? Because we had faith in the outcome. So to be enthusiastic in bhakti, we have to, continue to increase our understanding and knowledge of what it is that we are aspiring for. What is the greatness of devotional service? What is the greatness of awakening my love of Krishna? And by fueling that understanding, then our enthusiasm will follow. So the enthusiasm cannot come blindly. Yeah, you can fake it for some time, right? Oh, everybody else is enthusiastic, let me be enthusiastic. And it's good. And that can inspire us to get the ball rolling, if you will. But in time, by the study of Shastra, by the study of our previous acharyas, we can become enthusiastic. And I was just sharing something yesterday in a class on Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. Maybe I'll share here. We are extraordinarily fortunate to have been born in this world, in this time. And we can think, wait a minute, this is Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, so much strife around us. But if you see that we are appearing in a time when we have a direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada through his books, and we have this extraordinary connection to his spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, who was such an extraordinary person. When we describe his glories, they almost seem as if we're speaking about somebody from Srimad Bhagavatam millenniums ago. How someone in so recent history could have accomplished so many wonderful things. It's almost mind-boggling. And I was thinking, as we were discussing that, how fortunate we are to have now begun this process with their potency and energy and blessings to help us make progress. And that is a gift we don't want to waste. And thus we should be enthusiastic. If we, become lethargic, I'll make some progress in this life. Krishna says no loss or diminution. I'll carry on in my next life. 8th chapter, he says I'll, be born in a very wealthy family or a Vaishnava family. Yeah, but how close will we be to this direct mercy of the great personalities like Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, and our current acharyas? Right, so when we begin to appreciate the fortune we have, appreciate the gift of Krishna Prema, that can fuel our enthusiasm. Because without it, we will be faking it. So, it's okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very, very nice question answer session. Yeah, the Prabhuji, what you said, the point I really like, that like we should not get discouraged by our anarthas or whatever we cannot do, or if somebody says something to us, instead of just, getting frustrated, just we have to think like we have to come out of it. That is really very, very nice point, Prabhuji. Usually we get discouraged, not only somebody finding anarthas, but when we cannot do that services like in everybody, or participate like everybody is for the family situation or something, we just get discouraged so much. Actually, I was facing so much of discouragement in my life, and only because of this conference call, like I feel like I'm in the temple every day, because it's like, morning japa and then Bhagavatam class and then Chaitamritam class. It's like I feel like now I don't get discouraged, but at one point we feel really very discouraged if you don't have the association of devotees. That's really very, very nice point, Prabhuji. And the point you were telling about the, the encouragement, that what Mataji asked the question was very beautiful question. And then you were saying, when you put these so much of, whatever desired thing, like, you put the money and you ask them to do, and then we do it perfectly like that. We have to aim for Krishna, so that we can just, that Krishna is the supreme. So we want to achieve him, then we have to desire for it. And then if you have that goal in your heart, then we can get that enthusiasm to do it. It's very, very nice, Prabhuji. I'm just repeating this because I don't know did I understood it properly or not, Mataji. Prabhuji, just please correct me, Prabhuji, if I did anything wrong in understanding.
No, you summarized it very eloquently. It's a very nice understanding, and this this idea of the shining the light on our faults. When there is pain on that, understand that to be ego, right? And then, when somebody criticizes us, whether they are right or wrong, thank them. You'll see a remarkable change in that relationship. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji. I didn't see it. Thank you. And if you can't do it naturally, fake it. Because eventually you'll make it. Remember, duality only exists in the material world. When we experience duality in bhakti, it means there's some material contamination in our spiritual practice. Because in the spiritual world, there is no duality. Everything is bliss. So when we experience duality in bhakti, it means there are some impurities. Right? So, you understood it very nicely. Thank you for summarizing.
Thank you, Prabhu, for detailed explanation. It was very, very nice and a beautiful question answer session and the class. Thank you. Is there anybody having more questions or comments for the Prabhuji?
Very beautiful question answer session, Prabhu. Very, very lovely class. Thank you so much for coming on the call and giving us your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very grateful to all the assembled Vaishnavas.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have one question.
Yes.
Prabhuji, sometimes we feel this is the great opportunity, and then how we can feel that grateful always in our heart, means that is the opportunity is given to us. And also we can be very cautious to share with near and dear, whoever with us. Means how we can make that happen, Prabhu. Means this is a great opportunity. We want to very carefully hand over other person who are not getting.
Yeah, that's a very natural tendency, and that's a great devotional quality, which is the compassion. If you have a gift, you want to share it with others, right? Srila Prabhupada had extraordinary compassion. He was willing to give up his own comforts, his own blissful life in Sri Vrindavan Dham for the benefit of all of us. He was driven by the mood of compassion, seeing the pain and suffering of all around. And thus that inspired him to spread this message. And so, we can also carry on to whatever degree we are capable, to our capacity, in helping Srila Prabhupada continue to spread and act in this mood of compassion. The how to bring out that mood and how to bring out that feeling of appreciation and gratitude. You didn't use the word gratitude, but that was what was coming to mind as I was hearing the question. How to be grateful for what we have. It's discussions like this where we can talk about it and we can share our realizations and express our gratitude. It's an extraordinarily healing process for the heart, is to express gratitude. In the U.S. we celebrate this holiday of Thanksgiving. It's the giving of thanks. But why we have to have a holiday to have gratitude? It should be every day we are expressing gratitude, right? And so ultimately, how to bring it out? It's by better chanting. The better we chant, all these things will naturally come out. We'll be enthusiastic. We'll become compassionate. We'll become gracious. We'll become less envious. We'll become less greedy, less lust. All these things, they're the byproduct of good bhakti, good sadhana. And the most important part of our sadhana is the core purpose of this call in the first place, which is chanting of the holy names. So let the power of chanting bring out these wonderful characteristics. Whatever we are lacking, just become enthusiastic and chant more, better quality, with great attention, and these things will manifest for us. It's okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Any more questions or comments for the Prabhuji?
Just one more question if Prabhuji has time.
Yes, Mataji, no problem.
Well, just as a follow-up to the question, if we may be enthusiastic in trying to distribute this knowledge to the others, but every time it may not be so forthcoming, and then there's a hesitation in telling the others in the family about it, because they might create an offense. They might offend unconsciously or consciously. So how to avoid they not doing the offense, but at the same time we want to share that information with them, with what we have got.
Yeah, that's the art of preaching. So, we don't want to put them in a position. The reason Krishna says, don't share this with the envious is because, one, it'll make them unhappy. And two, if they become upset, they may become offensive, which then creates more suffering for them in the future. And so to save them from the future suffering, we, don't share this knowledge. On the other hand, if we don't share this knowledge, how they'll ever become free from this envy, right? So, we have to find creative ways to approach people. If someone in the family is not so inclined, but they are, have a pious mood and at least a open mind or maybe a neutral stance, then you try to give them books and say, just keep this Bhagavad Gita in your home. You don't have to read it. Just it brings auspiciousness. Whatever cover we have to go under to give them some mercy. If they'll not take that and you were fearful that they'll be disrespectful to it, give them some prasad. Tell them here's some cookies for you. Find some way to begin to start their process of bhakti. Honoring prasad is an important part of devotional service. Give them a beautiful painting of Krishna. Maybe they'll appreciate that. Find some way to slowly enter their hearts, and then they'll. Now, we apply that logic and thought, but then we also don't need to be so scared. Oh, I can't give this person because they may become offensive. Well, we do the best to analyze whether we think they may or not. If we have some reasonable conclusion that they'll be okay, then we give it. If they do it, that's still between them and Krishna. Whether they take the book or not, that has nothing to do with us. That's between them and the Lord. If they have the sukhriti and the potential, then it'll happen. And if not, not. So we can also renounce from any kind of also potential, mistreatment of that or offenses they may make. Again, we shouldn't blindly do that. If we know they're going to be offensive, then find some other means. But every person has some means by which we can preach to them. But again, preaching doesn't mean just speaking. It could be through prasad. It could be through, something. Engage them in some service. Hey, can you help me sew this thing? And they don't need to know what it's for. Or, engage them in some means. Find some way to start their process of bhakti. Because once the seed is planted, ultimately it'll fructify. As Prabhupada says, once you start, you'll be dragged to success. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji. That gives some idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, is there any more questions or comments for Prabhuji? Okay, if there are no more questions, Prabhuji, it's such a beautiful class. Thank you so much once again, Prabhu. So beautiful class. I would like to offer obeisances to all Vaishnavas. Mancha
Kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyavata patitanam pavaneo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava.
Hare Krishna.